Hey, welcome to the show. I am your host, Mike Hatch, and I am so grateful that you chose to join me today. I am also really grateful for those of you, and as of this recording, which is the beginning of October, 3 of you so far have gone on and given 5-star reviews, including written reviews. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing that. Again, when I go looking for podcasts, I usually go to the reviews to see what people are saying about it. And the more reviews, the more 5-star reviews, the more credibility that the podcast has in my eyes. And so this is really important to me because as you leave reviews, I believe that it lends that credibility to other people who are looking to listen. So it just helps to promote the show. I really, really appreciate those of you who've done that. If you haven't done that yet and this show has meant something to you, you find value in it, man, please go on and give me a 5-star review, and a written review would be even better. So thank you. Also, I want to thank those of you who have already come alongside and become ministry partners with me. Man, it makes such a difference. You are going to help us to be able to impact this region of Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania and beyond here in our first year of this ministry. So again, we're looking to raise $60,000 for the first year of operating costs. And if you'd like to do that, there's a link in the show notes that you can click on to find out more about the details of what we need in terms of support financially and how I break down the way you can participate in that. There are several options you can participate in. So thank you for those of you who already have joined in. And if you do become a ministry partner, not that you're donating because of this, but you will get some perks along with it. And I would love to invite you into my inner circle if you decide to do that, if God lays that on your heart to support. All right, so today's interview is with Chuck Verrett, who is from the Beaver County area. He is the president and CEO and founder of Integra Marketing Group. He is also the visionary and co-founder of Sustainable Mission Partners. I'm really excited for you to hear more about that. And among so many other entrepreneurial projects that Chuck has engaged in, he is also the co-founder of the Reclaim Project. And that is what we're going to talk about primarily today. Of course, you'll hear a little bit about Chuck's background, his faith background, his entrepreneurial journey. He is a self-admitted serial entrepreneur. And you're going to get the opportunity to hear how God is using Chuck's unique talents and abilities to be able to bring a redemptive impact in the Beaver County area, and specifically in areas where the steel industry rug pull has really had a negative effect on the communities there. Plus, you are going to be blown away by who it is that's actually doing this work and the redemptive nature of involving this group of people who tend to be pretty marginalized in our community. But Chuck and his partner have reflected the gospel and how they value these people, give them dignity, train them, and help them transition back into normal life. All right, gang, so here is my interview with Chuck Verrett. Chuck Verrett, welcome to the Redemptive Economics Podcast. Excited to have you with us, brother.
Yeah, you too, man. Great to see you again.
Definitely. I had the opportunity, the real privilege, to go with you on a trip. And by the way, I got car sick when it was all said and done. No fault of your own. It's my own issue with my stomach issues. But it was so worth it. It was so worth going with you and seeing the work that you're doing in the Beaver County area. And you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, and you investor. You've been around the block a while, and I want to have you share a little bit about your background. But I'm excited for folks to hear about what you're doing in Beaver County. But before we get there, give us a little background about you, where you got your start in your business, what businesses you have right now, and give us a little background on you.
All right, born and raised in Beaver Falls, I was a little bit of a serial entrepreneur. I was self-employed by the time I was 21. I opened...
That's early.
It's too early, actually. I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay.
Even though part of what I tell young people is fail as early as you can. I had those opportunities. God gave me those opportunities to fail as early as I can. And a big part of it is because I started so young. I just... ready, fire, aim a little bit. I opened a photography studio. That's what I went to college for, and had that decently successfully for 10 years. Had a bunch of 1-hour photos, if you remember those.
Oh, yeah.
In that,
oh, man,
I had some magazines. I started some magazines. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I could go on and on about the things that I've opened and closed. I had some car washes, 3 car washes that I owned. All kinds of things. About 10 years into that, I decided I wanted to get into marketing and advertising. That was the funnest part of that business, if you would.
Okay.
And I was really good at that. It's a sales piece and the marketing piece. So I sold my company to some people that worked for me, and that gave me the wherewithal to open a advertising and marketing PR firm, which I knew zero about, other than I liked it. And so what I did is I just hired people. I remember telling my wife, the first guy I hired, he was like $35,000 a year or something. This is in 1989, which still wasn't a lot of money then. But she said, how are you going to pay him? I go, well, honey, I don't have to pay him this month. I got every month to figure it out, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's literally like the way I looked at it. And then I hired another one and kind of built the company like that. So in our peak, we were at 30 people. Yeah, I was telling someone the other day, we had every key person that worked for me had an assistant. That's how crazy it was back in the day. Nobody booked their own flights. Nobody, like now I got to do everything. It's a different world after COVID. But everybody had an assistant. Even forget me, I had lots of assistants, but everyone had one. And it's just a different world. I've been doing that since 1989, so 35 years, way before Al Gore invented the internet. So you can imagine how my business had to change. We reinvented it. But really the core competency of my core business, which I could talk about a whole bunch of side things I've done in there, but I'm not going to, because most of them were failures. Really, our strategy is we take bigger companies or startup companies or even mid-sized companies from where they are to where they want to be, and we architect that for them. That's really our strength. So AI is never going to do that for you. We look at every little aspect of your business, your people, everything that you're good at, and we strategize that method of growth. And then we help you. Sometimes we help you get there. Sometimes we just unload it, depending upon who you are and how big you are.
And you've worked with some big companies too.
We worked with Subway, we worked with Chrysler,
right.
We worked with Earthlink, we helped launch Brewster's Ice Cream for Bruce Reed. You can go to our website. Yeah. We have all kinds of examples of what we've done. Yeah, and lots of very large software companies as well. It's been a great ride. I got to be honest. I never would have ever thought that I'd be doing that. One of the cool things for me, Mike, is with my ADD, I kind of look at the next shiny thing and want to go over here. Getting new accounts all the time, working in new industries all the time has really kept my head in that game so that I didn't just move on and sell this business and move on to the next one and all that. So I think the Lord blessed me in the marketing and advertising business. And of course, I was at the Realm, so I got to pick the client. So if I was kind of into something, that's what I pitched. I literally I was into snowboarding for a long time. I had 2 different ski resorts that we went after and that we ended up working with. But that wasn't because that was because I was into snowboarding and I was into that stuff. So I went after them.
I like that point, Chuck, real quick, because you kind of organically developed out of your interests and your passions. I love that point you're making there. Also, that you didn't let the unknown, and maybe because you were ignorant, naive, maybe, you just said, hey, I'm going to hire this guy and I've got time to figure it out. I'll pay him every month from time to time. We'll figure it out along the way. Yeah. I think that's what scares most people. I think most people, they feel like they need to have everything figured out and the blueprint completely finished and a plan to follow. And I just don't think it works that way.
Well, one of my most frustrating things, because I've worked at all kinds of different people, is I look at how people that are not believers take risks. And we have the Lord, the King of the world on our side, and we're risk adverse. That drives me crazy. That absolutely.
Oh, thank you for saying that, crazy. Chuck. Me too, man. Amen, brother.
So when I get someone who's a believer, I run to the mountain with them.
Love it.
And have to sometime remind them of why we're here and what we're doing and all that stuff. But
absolutely.
Yeah, it's been really
absolutely.
It's really been a good ride. You look back and you go, how in the heck did I get here?
Seneca Hills Bible Camp and Retreat Center is a hidden gem located just north of Pittsburgh in Venango County. Personally, when I attended their men's weekend, I was blown away by the beauty of the surroundings, the quality of the facilities, and the superiority of the cuisine. This is not your typical camp food, folks. Seneca Hills hosts year-round retreats and conferences, but their true passion is summer camp, where campers, both kids and adults, escape the everyday tyranny of screens and distractions and immerse themselves in 250 acres of God's gorgeous creation. Go to senecahills.org or call my good buddy, Executive Director Lyndon Fowler, to learn more about how Seneca Hills Bible Camp and Retreat Center can help you, your kids, or your business create unforgettable memories, meaningful friendships, and a deeper understanding of God's love. Well, and before you move on, I wanted you to share a little bit, too, about your faith background. This might be a good opportunity, just kind of bring that into it a little bit here. How long have you been a Christian? Were you raised in a Christian home? Yeah. What did that look like?
All the above. I remember in my 20s, I went to the Methodist church, and in the Methodist church they have what they call the administrative council president, and that's the guy who runs the church, right? He's really the guy that everyone looked to. And we had a guy named Colonel Solly. So Colonel Solly owned one of the largest car dealerships in the country, and just a big personality, whatever. And he died. He ran it for probably 40 years. He ran our church. He died, and they looked at me to become the administrative council president. I'm like, what do I know about that? But I owned a business. When you own a business, people think you're smart and whatever. So I literally filled the shoes in this church of this guy named Colonel Solly, who ran the church for probably 40, 50 years. And I gave a talk in the pulpit on stewardship. They asked me, I didn't speak in the pulpit or anything. I was just the kind of business guy behind it. But they asked me to give a talk on stewardship, and the night before I was in the bar, and I remember thinking after that, my mother's like, "Oh, we're so proud of you, blah, blah, blah." I'm thinking to myself, Chuck, what am I doing here? And it wasn't like I was carousing or whatever, but I certainly would. The good news is the same people who were in the church weren't in the bars I was in, because I was young. I was like 40 years old, 20-some years old.
That's a good thing.
But I remember just thinking, the hypocrisy drove me crazy. And so I said, hey, you're at a point, I was 20-some years old, I don't know. But I was at a point where, Chuck, you better make a decision. You need to go this way or this way, but you can't do this with both. And that was a defining moment. My sermon, it was called 1-800-GOD-CARES. That was I'll never forget because I was a marketing guy, whatever. And who that phone number would get you to and what he would be saying to you. And it was kick butt. And I thought it was. I had him rolling in the aisles. But man, it really spoke to me. And it really spoke to me about how hypocritical I was. And so I think that was a defining moment for me of just really self-examination and all that kind of stuff. And then I started looking for the right kind of girlfriend after that. I was single, and instead of the kind of girls I was looking for and all that stuff. And it just changed me. And God delivered her to me, and that was 30-some years ago. So
that's great. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your kind of philosophy in terms of business, especially from a Christian worldview, because you said some things in the past that I really appreciated, and I'd love folks to hear about your thought on that.
I was going down the path of writing a book about ending with zero. Did I have to show you that?
No.
These are the books. I'll show you these books. These are the books. Yeah. So you can't see them. But Die with Zero. Yeah. These are all the books I've been reading about studying for that. But I literally don't believe in inheritance. So I think we have given our kids the mechanisms, college, whatever, in order to succeed in life. But I've watched so many families fall apart when it comes to them getting money and all this. I mean, not like 10. Many, many, many families fall apart, and that I really admired. And so in my thinking, I'm going to do my living while I'm giving, so I'm knowing where it's going. So that is a very freeing thing if you think about it. Not having to do this at the end. My parents were not rich, but they had money at the end. And so I practiced what I preached. We gave all that away. We didn't use that to put our kids, we could have. I have 4 kids, so we could have used that for a lot of stuff, and we didn't.
And then, and I also know that you also took your passion for advertising and marketing and your heart to want to give and help ministries and stuff, and you started working with ministries specifically to help with their branding and their reach. Yeah. Talk a little bit about how that came
So I always did that. I always was a part of giving things. And the reality of it is we had a pretty bad year one year, and I looked at all the things we're working on, and everybody that worked for me really, they just got paid. They didn't know Chuck wasn't getting paid for this or that or whatever. They're just working on stuff. And I had a pretty bad year, and I started looking at it and going, man, half the stuff that's running through this agency is free. No wonder we're losing so much money. So I started really looking at how can we do that differently. And that was really the thinking behind, that was like 2009, 2010. In 2011, I started with my pastor, Jeff Arnold, this thing called Sustainable Mission Partners. And SMP, it helps, it does what I do to businesses. So you're here, you need to get here. We do that to missions. So we help missions become sustainable in multiple different ways for multiple different things. And what it allowed me to do is a little bit separate IMG doing all this free stuff, Integra Marketing Group, that's the name of my company, and kind of put that under the SMP umbrella, this nonprofit. And that's been going since 2011. So we've done all kinds of different projects under that, from coffee shops to turkey farms to woodworking places. We literally just launch them, teach them a business model, and then we usually try to get out of the way. But make them better, make them whatever. And you can look at sustainablemissionpartners.org, and there's all kinds of things from Communicycle. There's all kinds of different brands under that you would recommend. We work with the Acervo Project, and we work with Silver Ring Thing and Unaltered Ministries and Young Life and all kinds of different things under that umbrella.
Man, that's so cool. It was already a part of your DNA beforehand. You were already working with folks like that, but you formalized it through this organization, SMP. Yeah. Okay, very good. Now, recently, over the last few years, you've been embarking on a new project to begin to revitalize Beaver County, and which is, of course, where you live, where your business is located. And man, I'm really excited for folks to hear about this new project where you're tearing down old houses that are dangerous and a blight in certain communities. But the way you're going about it, as we were discussing before we started recording, is very redemptive. And I'll share a little bit more about that perspective as you share. But give us a little bit of an idea of what you're up to, what you're working on in Beaver County when it comes to this. Right. And because I really believe this can possibly be a model in all sorts of different areas of Pittsburgh. Yeah.
So one of the qualities of a serial entrepreneur like myself is they use everything every time for every project. I use every relationship I have. I was a youth leader for 19 years at my church, and I used to, these kids, they started getting bigger than me in high school and whatever, and be able to beat me up. But I said, I'm like Jason Bourne. I use everything around me when I'm fighting to beat you. If I have to grab something, if I have to grab a Bible and bop you in the head with it, I'm going to do that. So don't wrestle with me, because I'm going to beat you. I'm just telling you right now. Business is the same way. I use every relationship I have for every project I have. If I know that I need a truck for this, I'm calling Pat Gallagher and going, hey, Pat, I need a truck for blah, 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 or whatever. It could be money, whatever it is. That's just how I am. And
Pat Gallagher, by the way, folks, from PGT Trucking, for those of you who don't know, he owns PGT Trucking. Great, amazing Christian man.
And he was my first client. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Pat.
Truth at Work executive peer advisory groups are a life and business changing experience. Trust me, I've experienced it myself. It made such an impact on me that I stepped out to become a chapter president myself. At Truth at Work, we're dedicated to helping Christian business leaders who feel isolated and overwhelmed. Our community of like-minded peers are here to help leaders like you live out your faith in the marketplace and build your business on biblical principles. Christian business leaders are transformed through these peer advisory groups that apply biblical truth for living out our faith in all areas of life. If you'd like to learn more about Truth at Work, email me, Mike Hatch, at mhatch@truthatwork.org, or you can email my counterpart, Dave Hartman, at dhartman@truthatwork.org.
But knowing that, I looked at as part of SMP's Trails Ministry, that they're a reentry program. So every county in America has a reentry program. So if I was in prison, I'm getting out, they asked me, where are you going to be going? I'm going to be going I have a cousin that lives in this area. I'm going to be living with them and blah, blah, blah. And you have to spell that out. And then you have to report to a probation officer, a halfway out, depending upon what you did, what kind of crime and whatever it is. As part of that, they connect you to a re-entry program like Trails Ministry. And Trails Ministry says to you, okay, do you have credit? Probably not. You've been incarcerated. So do you have a vehicle? Do you have blah, 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 blah? And they help you with all your life skills kind of things. And part of that is, okay, if I don't have a car, I need to live on a bus line so that I can go get a job somewhere, all that kind of stuff. And everyone in the country has a reentry program. Every county in the country, like some of them are large and have multiple ones, but yeah, every county in America has a reentry program at some point.
But Trails is specifically for Beaver County?
They stretch out a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They do Pittsburgh, they do Washington, they do Lawrence, of course, and whatever. But so we did a thing with SMP with them, and we found out that one of the things where these reentry programs fall apart is they will help you fill out a resume, and that's not enough. That's usually enough for. And I don't want to talk bad about a McDonald's or anything like that, but basically it's a job that you could be 50 years old and the best thing you're going to get is in a fast food restaurant or a server or a mucker at a restaurant or something like that. So we said, man, that's a really big thing. And a big part of that, Mike, was because a lot of these guys burnt every bridge that they had. They don't have one person that would say, take a chance with Mike. He shows up on time. He's got his life right. They don't have one person in their life that would say that. And so we developed what we're calling a workforce development program that bolts on to a reentry program. And theoretically, this would work all across the country, and it's certainly across Pennsylvania. So we could do this, and we did it by tearing down houses. When you tear down houses, there's two ways to do it. One is called demolition. You go in with a machine, boom, it all goes into a landfill when you're done. The other way is called deconstruction. Deconstruction is where you go in, you pick it apart, and you recycle some things, you reclaim some things, and stuff like that. You can literally reclaim about 80% of that house.
Wow.
Or recycle 80% of that house. But you can imagine how time consuming that is. So what we do is we take these people who were previously incarcerated and train them through the department. We get paid through the Department of Corrections to train them on something. We pay them while we're doing it, and we tear down these houses. And that allows us to train them in all kinds of different skills. My partner in this is a guy named Nick Trombetta. Nick was the CEO of PA Cyber. He has his doctorate in education. He understands education, and he's been a huge mentor to, I'm going to say, hundreds and hundreds of people over the years.
Yeah.
And he really understands all the skill sets in that you can train them. So in 5-6 months, we can go to an employer, and we've done it again and again and again, saying, you can take a chance with Mike. He shows up on time. He does this. He does that. And we have had some really good success stories, and no one has gone back to prison. So Recidivism
the
rate in America
recidivism
is
yeah.
about 50%. Ours, no one has gone back since we've been doing our program. So praise God for that.
Praise God. Man, so you guys are such advocates for these people who are coming out of prison. And I love that, because if there's anybody who needs an advocate, it's someone who's coming out of prison and trying to restart their life. And yet that can be the most neglected people.
It's a hard audience to love, I got to be honest. I have a guy that I think I told you earlier has 9 kids to 9 women, and his girlfriend was pregnant. That's a hard guy to love. But his dad was like that, and his grandfather was like that. So going out, raising money for these guys, all that is very difficult. It's just, what would you rather give to a starving kid or a starving dog or this guy that, whatever? It's a hard audience to raise money for. So when we're marrying them together, it's been decently successful in that. We were able to raise $1.4 million to get the pilot program up and running. We tore down 36 houses in the pilot program. We're at 42 now that we tore down.
Amazing.
Just got another $500,000 grant from the Royal Dutch Shell folks and whatever. So we're moving on with this project, but it's in the name of reclaiming products, not filling up landfills, redeeming people's lives. Of course, what I care about is bringing them to Christ. So we've took that under an umbrella. We have Bible study every week. We pay them to go. We feed them breakfast, and we pay them to go to the Bible study. Guess what? They're going. They're on time. That's the one place they're always on time, right? And so we just figured it out. It's been a pilot. We've been working on it for a couple years now, and it's been
this is exactly the thing, as we were talking about before, that just fits so well into the redemptive economic framework that I've talked about on this show for a while. And one of the things I do is I try to obviously encourage business owners, just first of all, on a base layer, just know that just becoming a business owner and an entrepreneur, you are actually reflecting God's character and who he is by embracing that creation mandate and producing value for others. Now, I realize that sometimes people can be selfish about that, but in my experience, a lot of Christians are not that at all. But then you work up to the next level and you begin to start using that influence and profit that you've earned to re-sow seed, to spread the seed out further. And you've been doing that through SMP, but then now with this project as well. And again, redeem means to buy back. And of course, in the spiritual sense, as Christians, we believe that Jesus bought us back by his death on the cross and resurrection from the grave. By his work, we are redeemed, and it's through faith that we are saved. And so everything we do now, Paul talks about the fact that we are ambassadors for Christ. We are his representatives in the world, and that God has entrusted to us the ministry of reconciliation, as if we are making an appeal to other people, be reconciled to God. And then you're doing that basically, and what you're doing with this, you are, in literally as you're paying these people, you are redeeming them from a financial standpoint, buying them back and giving them productive work that they're able to be trained, they're able to learn new skills, they're able to prepare themselves for work in the future, be able to provide for their families, breaking some of those chains, generational sin that's been happening in their lives, as you just pointed to. You're able to, in a sense, provide an opportunity for them to break that, right? And then the last thing I'll say is, because I love this, I think in Matthew, when Jesus talks about the final judgment, and one of the things he will say is whether or not you helped him, whether you gave him a glass of water, whether you gave, and he means that as an analogy, saying anything you've done for the least of these, he says, of course, you've done for me. And one of the examples he uses is ministering to people in prison. Wow. Did you go visit me in prison? And you're doing that, but you're taking it to the next level. You're taking these people from prison who've, of course, are at the end of themselves, right? These guys and maybe women. Is it mainly guys?
Mainly guys right now, yeah.
Yeah. Holy cow. Like what an incredible impact, man. I'm so grateful for your heart, Chuck, and for what you're doing through this. There's so many different things that just align so well, which is why I wanted to have you on to talk about it.
Yeah.
Jeff Doherty with Allstate Insurance has the distinction of being the very first sponsor of the Redemptive Economics podcast, and I couldn't be happier. to promote his services. I've known Jeff for many years now, both as his pastor and friend. And man, I can say with confidence that he is a man of strong faith who aligns well with the redemptive economics values. So reach out to Jeff. He can offer you options for a wide variety of coverage and services. He's committed to helping Pittsburgh residents assess their immediate and long-term needs and choose options that will help you achieve your goals. When you want to explore options for protecting your home, personal property, or financial future, Jeff Doherty is your guy. You'll find Jeff's contact information in the show notes. Hey, go grab a cup of coffee with him, get to know him, even if it's just to review your current coverage in case you need to make adjustments. And I promise you're going to love Jeff every bit as much as I do.
If I can tell one story about one guy,
yeah.
and I have a bunch.
Please.
I was out of town, and with a client. I still am pretty active in IMG and all the things we're doing there. And Nick called me like 5 times, and I was with someone. I couldn't take his call. I finally, like at 10:30 that night, I called him back, and I said, "What happened? What's wrong?" I'm thinking somebody died or whatever. And he said, "I got to tell you a story. This happened." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "We got," I'll call him Jim. It wasn't his name, but Jim. We got Jim a interview at the plant down there. They pay $22 an hour at the plant, and the plant manager said, "Look, I'm not going to send him to HR. I'm going to interview him personally. I know these guys are sensitive. I've never done that in 20 some years, but I'm going to do it for you guys. I'm going to do it personally." So he interviews this guy personally, and he called up Nick right after the interview and said, "I have never done this. I hired him on the spot." And he goes, I got to tell you what happened." And he said, and Nick was all pumped up about this story, and he wanted to tell me this story. Yeah. Okay, but he said, "I don't know what you guys are doing there. This guy comes in. It's a job in a factory, so it's not you don't wear a suit or anything. This guy," he says, he wore a suit to the office. He shook my hand. He looked me in the eye. He goes, "I don't know how you guys are training these guys, but I am blown away by the character." This guy talked right up front about his past. He talked about who he was, who he wants to be, and who he plans on being as a dad, as a husband, as a blah, blah, blah. He goes, "Nick, this guy blew me away." He goes, "I hired him on the spot." And I told him, "I have never done that before. You are hired. You can start Monday if you want." And he goes, he's walking out of my office, and he turned around, and he pointed at me, and he said, "You, sir, you just changed my life," to the plant manager. And he said, I just started bawling like a baby. And Nick's bawling, telling me this story. And Nick goes, "Chuck, we're doing it, man. We're doing it. We're doing it, man." And look, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we do in this. We deal with the recycle stuff, and we deal with the not filling the landfills, and the recycling the bricks, and we work with construction. There's a million little moving parts. At the end of the day, you change a life. That's all that matters. That's all I care about. And that's why we're doing it. We're doing a whole bunch of other stuff that gets politicians excited about funding us and all that. But the reality of it is, that's why we're doing it. So it's pretty cool.
Man, praise God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. If you would, you took me on a tour in your truck. We drove around to the different places. Where are the places that you've been focusing on in terms of, removing some of the blight, and then maybe that are targeted to rebuild eventually?
Yeah. So we pitched a pilot program to our county commissioners, and we charge $17,000. We hired a consultant to tell us how to do all this stuff and whatever. Okay. We pitched $17,000 to tear down 36 houses, and I pitched our county commissioners on the idea, and it's basically using funding that's already in place, just steering it towards our program and all that.
And I'm sorry, real quick, just to clarify, that $17,000 is per house, isn't that right?
Which
Okay.
in Pittsburgh is like 30-some thousand. So it's a lot more because of permitting and all this crap that has to happen. That's why we haven't gone into Allegheny County. We don't have the money for that yet. But anyways, we pitch them, and the county commissioners at the end said, "Look, we love what you're trying to do here. We see no reason we can't fund 36 houses at $17,000. The county commissioner said, I don't know what 36 times 17 is, but I see no reason we couldn't fund that. So I leave, I get back in my car, and I sit there, and I'm like, yeah, what is 17 times 36? I did it. It's like $712,000. I'm like, holy crap, they just gave me $712,000 for this project. So that got the ball rolling on this whole program. So we tore down 36 houses in the pilot. We actually did more than that. They're in Midland, Aliquippa, and Beaver Falls. Just to put things in perspective, there's under 900 houses that need to come down right now in Aliquippa. That's how many houses are out there. So I could go around the communities. There's a ton of blighted we're not kicking anyone out. These have been abandoned for years and years, and there's rats in them, and some of them are in decent neighborhood.
Yeah, share the story about, because as we were driving around, you shared the story of one person who their house was next to a blighted house, and you removed it, and it's a beautiful property. The person clearly has pride of ownership, but it seems like that whole process even helped him more to take more pride. Can you share?
We asked the neighbors, hey, would you like this house teared down? Oh, I've been trying to get it teared down for 10 years. We could tear it down. Would you take care of the property? Because the municipality has to, they take ownership of it. They have to start taking care of the property. So we usually find out get the barometer of the neighborhood in that. And I think the one that I took you to had 5 in one block that we tore down. And so there were drug dealers, rats, you name it. Just one of them was falling into a nice house next door, and just as dangerous as you can think of. That's what's there. So we try to get a barometer of what's going on, and most of the time, again, there's rats coming out of this house. They're like, yeah, I'll cut the grass, I'll do whatever you ask me to if you make that a nice. So we get them to take pride. But I rode you down the street. We did 7 in one on one street in West Aliquippa, and you could just see the neighborhood. What's the difference? If the house next to me, there's junk everywhere, there's garbage everywhere, why would I clean my porch up? But they started doing that. We call it changing the GDP of the neighborhood, and really getting them to take pride in who they are.
Man, that's amazing. It was so cool to see that, and it blew me away. Like, we're driving by these lots, you wouldn't think anything of it, but you're like, tore one down there, tore one down there, tore one down there, and it was incredible to see that. And the way it does make just removing it makes such a huge difference in the neighborhood. So that's incredible. So it's worked well. It sounds like you've worked well with some of the civil authorities in the Beaver County area.
Next year we'll be going to Rochester, and we'll be doing Aliquippa still because there's so many there, and we'll be going, and we're doing some in Midland. We're going to Rochester and Ambridge. Those are the 2 other communities that we're working in.
It's just unbelievable, because you've got this group of people who are in the prisons who are transitioning out into real life that you're helping, the neighborhoods and the families of these neighborhoods and towns that you are helping. It is. And then, of course, the government I'm sure they're ecstatic about this, because someone's coming alongside. Something similar has happened up in Katanning. Andrew Ladusau up there, who I interviewed earlier, is working with the civil authorities up there to be able to help revitalize Katanning. And man, it's just such a win-win-win-win-win situation, Yeah,
it's been a great thing. So you think about it, Mike, we have 42 lots now in all these communities that are vacant. What do you do with them? So I've been working with a bunch of different folks on how do we build something on these lots for years. And literally just a couple days ago, a day ago, we got our first grant to start rebuilding houses on these lots. Of course, you can't build expensive houses. They're in blighted neighborhoods. So we have 42 lots in blighted neighborhoods. But the guy, the mayor of Aliquippa said, I lived here for 52 years. I literally have never remembered anyone building a new house in Aliquippa. Lots of remodels, lots of things. Wow. I can never remember a new house going up. So if we can build on these lots in these neighborhoods, now you can only One of the reasons we need to do some grants is we're going to be taking the skilled workers, if you would, that we have and really training them some building skills and really helping them launch into, we have pre-apprenticeship program curriculum and things like that. But imagine creating some guys that went from pretty much zero to a union carpenter or a union laborer. Those jobs are in demand. So that would be really a great thing. You talk about changing someone's life. That would be really cool. So we'll be using this more skilled guys that we have to go into a next phase program, unless they want to go get a job, which is fine too. But our plan is to build a house that's valued at about 80 grand, sell that to a lower income person. The Huntington Bank gave us the grant, so they will finance the house with $500 down, low interest. They have monies for this kind of thing. It's called CBDG money, community reinvestment money, and that's who we tapped into. But we got the first one, and we'll be going out after monies, but we'll literally spend all that money on that house. We'll work with Home Depot, the gypsum plants, different people to give us free stuff, window places. We have a great relationship with Construction Junction. They buy all our bricks. They buy all our stuff that we get and resell it. So we'll be working with those kind of folks to rebuild houses in these neighborhoods and then sell them to lower income folks. But that's the kind of thing that once we get that rolling, we could start to really roll. And we have 42 lots right now, so we're ready.
TBD Bookkeeping is who I use for my bookkeeping needs, and I'm thrilled to recommend them to you. As business owners with 3 kids themselves, Ryan and Danielle Hatch understand the value of time and the importance of work-life balance. TBD Bookkeeping can take over the day-to-day bookkeeping of your business so you can focus more on growth, operations, and customer relationships. I can speak from experience. If you're a business owner, you need a bookkeeper, and TBD Bookkeeping is simply the best in the business. Find their contact information in the show notes, and when you mention Redemptive Economics, you'll receive 10% off your first 3 months. Call TBD Bookkeeping today and learn more about the benefits I've experienced. More time, peace of mind, and the ability to plan for the future. Gosh, you know what would be amazing? And I think God's going to do it at some point. I believe it. It would be incredible to see things come full circle and see one of these guys who's getting out of prison, who went through the program, buy one of those new houses.
That's definitely on our radar, for sure.
Yeah, I bet. That would be, what a story. Yeah. Holy cow. Okay, very cool. Do you, so you've gotten out of, if you will, the experimental or test phase, proving the concept. It's gone well. I just imagine, there's so many other places around Pittsburgh that, just like Aliquippa, the steel industry rug pull has left the community reeling. Yeah. And there's several communities still around the Pittsburgh region. Do you see the potential? You mentioned it would be harder in Allegheny County. Yeah. There would have to be some concessions there in order for maybe it to work. But do you see the potential for this to take off around Western PA?
Oh yeah. Well, Nick started PA Cyber. So PA Cyber, we would love to make it replicatable throughout the state of Pennsylvania. If that'll happen or not, if we'll just give a model and teach other people how to do it, I don't know. We'll see how that all comes together with that. But our goal is, and I don't want to pretend that the pilot was perfect. We had a ton of problems in the pilot. One of the things that we learned that was a really big thing is that Construction Junction did a pilot as well in Pittsburgh, and their pilot, they went in and to City of Pittsburgh and said, let us choose the house that we want to tear down. And then we'll sell the stuff. We're going to choose a house that has some nice stuff in it. We'll use that money to offset so you won't have to pay us anything. That model fell apart. They couldn't come close to finding the value in the houses that were on the vacant, list, right?
Yeah.
Our model is, we said to the communities, you pick the houses, and then we'll tear them down, but you got to pay us $17,000, and we already got that funded, blah, blah, blah. That model fell apart a little bit because they picked the worst of the. So there was very little reclaiming products in there. You could still grind up the wood, save the brick. You could do recycle stuff, but very little reclaiming products. And it's because they want this house tore down, that house. We allowed them to pick it. There needs to be a little bit better jiving in that model. This one won't work. This one isn't going to work as good. And so there are a bunch of refinements in this, and that's why we called it a pilot. That's why we said, hey, we're beta testing this with 36 houses. We literally, on the money side, we literally came out at about zero. So we were pretty good on the money thing, but we learned a lot on several of the other things, like keeping our guys busy in between tearing down houses. It was a whole bunch of things that we had them doing, community stuff. But it shouldn't work like that. If we're tearing down houses, we should be tearing down houses. So we learned a whole bunch in this so that we can make it a replicatable model. And I'm not saying that we're there yet, but it's way closer than it was.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that, because you're right. You don't want folks to think that everything has been great and no issues. With any entrepreneurial experiment, they say over and over again on this podcast, is you're gonna run into issues and challenges, and the thorns and thistles of a fallen, broken world are gonna try to sabotage your efforts. And you just got to learn, trust God, keep stepping out in faith and allowing Him to provide.
Yeah, we had to, the things like our guys don't know what poison ivy is. Like we lost 3 people to poison ivy pretty early on. Gosh, we got to train these guys on vegetation. So we had Penn State come in and train them on what different vegetation is and how to.
Who would have thought?
Like stuff like that you don't even think of. And yeah, it was like we learned at their expense. At least nobody died, but it was pretty brutal. So things like that. Learn about pesticides. Like the good news is they got certified in all kinds of different crazy things. Forget OSHA. We did that early on, but all kinds of different things that we just came up at their expense a little bit.
Wow, that's crazy. But that's part of the learning process and the growing process.
Yeah, we won't do that one again.
Yeah, right. So and then of course, just dealing with some of the civil authorities, some of the local government, you're going to have all sorts of, I'm sure, competing interests and incentives with that.
Legal stuff, and there's all kinds of legal stuff when you go to tear down the house that we had to really walk through. And the reality of it is having a pipeline so that we can go from one house to another versus waiting for the Beaver Falls City Council to meet on this date so that they can approve it, and like all that kind of stuff and how that all kind of works. We had to really refine and walk through and all that.
That's amazing, Chuck. I'm so grateful that you've taken the skills that you've learned, the education that you've had being in business for over 30 years and applying those to this new effort, but still learning new things, because that's going to happen. Yeah. I'm just so grateful to you, and I know God is doing some powerful things in and through you and Nick and this project. What are some things that, as people are hearing about this, some people might be inspired to want to jump in and get involved with you somehow, potentially. Are there opportunities for that? Or what are some things that you are really needing?
Yeah. So I think on the money piece, we're doing pretty well on the tearing down the house thing. On the money piece, on the rebuilding house thing, that's just coming out of the ground now. So we haven't done that yet. So we need to minimally raise $30,000 more to build a house for $80,000. But we also need to look for products and new stuff, not necessarily used stuff. And we have a relationship with Construction Junction, so I'm sure we're going to lean on them for a lot of things. But as we build these houses, used stuff is very difficult because you're building, if you have a model house, you're building the model house around the size window that you have that was given you. Yeah, that's very difficult versus training people on how to build this model house and all that kind of stuff. So donating stuff. We have Fred Hamilton that owns Hamilton Tool, is an unbelievable godly man. He has said, any tool you want, I will give you guys. We're creating a
Wow.
tool school where we can teach. Here's how a Milwaukee works. Here's how a DeWalt works. Here's how you put the chuck in it. You do this, all these different things. Like, we're going down that path. But he said, if I don't have the tool, I will buy it for this ministry. I believe in it. And
Wow.
what a godly person in that area. We have trailers, we have skidsters, we have dump trucks. We've been able to garnish all the things, some of them volunteering, but you can do anything. We have a company that makes water, bottled water, that says, I'm going to give you all the bottled water you need for your ministry, and which you need a lot. Meals, things like that, donating money for meals for our guys and things like that, or that showing that a community cares for them. That really goes a long way with these guys.
Redemptive Economics is completely listener supported and dependent on the contributions of listeners. If you resonate with the message of Redemptive Economics and want to support the cause, there are 3 ways you can partner with us. The first is you can subscribe to the podcast for $5 a month and unlock all the amazing interviews and content without the interruption of advertisements. Secondly, you can donate to Redemptive Economics, either making a one-time gift or supporting monthly to help us offset the production costs and reach more people for the sake of the gospel. Lastly, if you're a business, you can choose to advertise with us. Right now, we're offering a limited number of spots for sponsorships for the first year at $150 per month or $1,800 for the year. I would be so grateful for your partnership. Check out the show notes for all the links that will lead to more information about how to support our mission to empower Christian entrepreneurs. How about, I was thinking contractors. I was thinking of general contractors coming in and helping with some of the building of this stuff. Do you think that's a need?
There's a big liability thing, so somebody has to take the responsibility. So all the heavy lifting we subcontract to with the big equipment, and we've used 5 different contractors so that we can see who's good at what. We know what they're good at, what the people that will take the stuff for themselves versus giving it to the ministry, the people that get it, so to speak, and they're really going to support us, and the people that don't. And so we've really learned who's best in that. But as we go around Pittsburgh, as we go to Senator Bartolotto has been really a big proponent of ours. I don't know if you know her or not, but she is in charge of the prison reform system. She's the chairwoman of that, as well as labor and industry. So labor and industry pays our guys for 6 months. Prison reform helps us with paying the guys that train them and all that kind of stuff. She would love us to come to Washington County next, if we can do that. And we're in conversations about that. We want to make sure that it's right before we really start to replicate it.
So, again, folks could listen to this and hear, man, what an unbelievable success Chuck Verrett is. He is, wow, he's done so much, and now he's able to give back and impact the community. But here's my thought, Chuck, and this is where I'd like maybe your advice, wisdom, input. For that young entrepreneur, or just young in age or young in experience, who's hearing this and they're like, oh my gosh, this gets me fired up. I'm so excited, and I'd love to get to that point where I could do something similar. But they're trying to break even themselves. You know what I mean? They're trying to just get their business up and running and get to a point where it's financially sustainable for them and their family, let alone to move out and do things like this, big projects like this. What advice, wisdom would you give to someone like that?
So I have always served God through my strengths, what I think are my strengths. And one of my strengths is I don't know any better. I just ready, fire, aim. I'm a doer. And I think it's a strength. I don't know. I failed too a lot. But I think I've talked to you about my son, Zach. But my son, Zach, serves God through his weakness. And he is so much more powerful than I am in his ministry. And, the key is serve God. Wow. Just figure out a way wherever you're at. You don't have to be at this place where in your life, and especially wait till the end of your career. I think that's a big mistake. God can use you wherever you're at in whatever situation you're in. And I point to my son Zach all the time, and he is way more effective in his ministry than I am. I'm good at the top end. I don't touch a lot of the guys. I don't touch a lot of the things that have to happen. I raise the money for it. I dream it. That's my strength. But you can serve God in anything, in any capacity, for any way. I hate the fact that this is how I serve. And I really never realized that till about 5-6 years ago. I have always served God through what Chuck thinks is his strengths. But man, it's so much better.
Can you unpack that just a little bit when you talk about I'm sure I could, when I think of weaknesses, God definitely calls us. I mean, Paul's famous in his epistles for saying that it's through our weaknesses that God's power is made perfect. And so knowing that we are impoverished spiritually, going back to the Sermon on the Mount, is really the beginning, is understanding that we are desperately dependent on God. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what you're getting at, is knowing that, understanding our weaknesses, being dependent on God and allowing Him to work through us. Would you add anything? Can you unpack that any more? Any other thoughts on that?
I just think and Mike, you've done that with your past, with the things you've recognized. Like, that's serving God. Yeah. That's reaching people through your weakness, not look at me, I'm great at this. And that's what I'm talking about. It's just...
Yeah. So my addiction to pornography, that kind of thing, writing the book and everything.
Yeah, that's how you're going to connect to people and do all that. I'm more on the top end. This is not the way to do ministry. This is the way Chuck does it, because that's how I've always done it. And that's what I bring to the table. That's who I am. There's not a lot of people that are like that just come up with things again and again and again. That's what I do. But think about how many people are under me that have to figure out a way to do it. There's lots of them, that whether it be in business or it be in projects that I'm doing for the kingdom or whatever, there's a whole lot of stuff that has to happen. So my point is, don't think that you have to come up with this or come up with that or whatever. That is, somebody does, and whatever, I get it. But man, you can honor God in all kinds of different ways. I do mission trips every year, and I say, hey, look, you want to come and cook meals? That would be a way to come and cook meals. If you know how to do construction or whatever, I will figure out a way for you to honor God on a mission trip. Just pack up let's go. A lot of people don't think like that.
Yep. I appreciate that, Chuck. That helps a lot, because you're right. I think some people might think of their lack of resources from more of a scarcity mindset and not realize how much they have to offer just simply as being a product or a recipient of the gospel in their own lives, and how that changes you. I love how, so we talk a lot on the show about aiming for redemption, not retirement. And I know that's a big deal to you as well. I think you've said to me before that you're not planning on retiring. And I think you may have even said you don't believe in retirement.
Not in the Bible.
I think is what yeah, it's not the Bible. I agree. I'm with you. I totally agree. But so many people, unfortunately, in our culture, that is the driving, goal, target. And as Christians, we can get pulled into that very easily and make it our own goal as well. But I love what you're doing is aiming for redemption versus retirement.
Yeah. It's funny, Mike. I look back at, I do a lot of audiobooks, and I look back at the audiobooks I read 10 years ago and the audiobooks I've been reading for the last 10 years. And for marketing is this big, right? So you can't know enough about all this crap that's going on, from social media to whatever. And I really, for years, just every second I can, I tried to educate me on the marketing world and running an ad agency and all that kind of stuff, so I could be better for my clients. In the last 10 years, and maybe more than that, I've been reading books on the kingdom and what God is expecting of me. And I think of that scenario, and I think I was reading about where I wanted to go. I wanted to have a decently success. I needed to feed my 4 kids, and now I'm working on where I want to go in heaven. And that's the focus. Where you focus is where you're going to go. And so when it comes to retirement, that's what, if you think you deserve to golf every day and that is nirvana in your life, that's probably where you'll go. And that's nothing wrong with that, maybe. But you know
Maybe.
what? I don't think that is God's plan. God can use everyone at every step of their life. So for me, I'm focusing and working towards where I want to go, just like reading those books. And it could be, like we were talking about, it could be any little thing. I think God uses every little situation. And I just want to, I'll give one. My sister lost her daughter at 27. My daughter was 27. She was killed in a car wreck. And it took her a few years, but that is her ministry. She ministers to people who lost their kids or lost a loved one or whatever. And she has dove into that. She could have been angry about that. She could have been whatever, but she figured out a way to use that as her ministry. And I run away from those people that I don't know what to say. My sister runs into the building. And so no matter what it is, I think God can use you. An older person, one of the things they have is experience. So you're going to golf, you're going to go with your buddies, and they're like, I totally don't get that. That's just not for me. I'm not wired like that. So I want to crank this down and crank this up as much as I can for kingdom work.
I love it. Oh, I love it. That's such a great point. Where your attention is where you're going to end up going. So if you're thinking of that big retirement, golfing in Florida, or if you're thinking about the kingdom of God and what that's going to be like when we enter into eternity, man, because really this life is really preparation for our eternity, right?
Unless you don't believe that. If you believe that your job in this life is to take it easy towards the end and leave your kids with lots of money, I don't think like that. My other sister runs a ministry in Kenya. And it's a beautiful ministry called pathfrompoverty.org. But she's 77 years old, went on a mission trip last year, not in the best of health. And our relatives, the family text, everyone's, she shouldn't be going. Finally, I sent out a text and said, wait a minute, you mean she could die on a mission trip? Hello? Does it get any better than that? What do you guys think? I thought you're all believers here. And it's true. What do you want? That's hey, that would be awesome.
That's so funny. Yeah, even mission trips have become more like vacations in many ways sometimes. Not all of them. Doing it right. Yeah, Chuck, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for just your authenticity and sincerity and your heart to serve. Man, I'm blown away by what God's doing in and through you. I'm grateful that we were connected and have been able to build a friendship. And man, where can folks get in touch with you? Where can they follow you? If you're on social, you're not super involved on social media, I know, but where can people find out more about the marketing, SMP, and this
so
Reclaim
you can
project?
Google Chuck Verrett. I'm all over it. That's easy. Maybe not as much as you though. But and then it'll connect you to all those kind of things. So the Reclaim Project, thereclaimproject.org is our website for that piece. Trailsministry.org is the Trails Ministry piece of that. SustainableMissionPartners.org is that. IntegraMarketingGroup.com is my website. So all that, but you'll find that all. You put Chuck Verrett in there and it'll connect you somewhere.
Thank you, Chuck, so much, man. I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Keep it up.
Let's get to work.